Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for joining us on this special edition of Jalsa Connect. And we have a professor of Arabic Studies from the Lagos State University to join us in this discussion. And he is Professor Saheed Timehin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you for joining us on Jalsa
Thank you.
Connect. Yes, we are at venue of the 69th edition of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat Nigeria Annual Convention, but it's also a time to really spotlight the essence of this period. Professor Sai, Jalsa Salana, tell us the essence, really, in this part of the world.
In this part of the world, if you're talking about a yearly gathering, okay, Jalsa Salana, yearly conference, yearly convention, every religious ideology, every faith tradition is sustained by a social system. So one thing is to learn about a religion or to learn about your particular faith tradition. And it's another thing to have the social support that sustains your commitment. Many a time we practice a faith tradition, we uphold a particular religious ideology. If we do not have an opportunity of interacting regularly with people with the same orientation who share the same belief system with us, we tend to lose our identity. The Jalsa gives us an opportunity of seeing people other than ourselves, people other than the ones we see regularly. You know, there are times you do something and monotony sets in and you feel you don't want to do it again. Or, okay, no, it's not that, it's so important after all. The Jalsa gives you an opportunity of coming, of interacting with people, with a larger gathering, with people who are from different parts of the country, people with a different sociocultural orientation, who subscribe to the same ideology, who share the same belief with you. It gives you an opportunity of putting into practice those precepts you have learned. If you are in a small community, because we tend to know ourselves, it may be easy to navigate the tortuous terrains of human interactions, the differences, the diversity in our nature. But when it's larger, there is an inherent volatility in it. You see someone who is totally different, yet shares the same identity with you as an Ahmadi Muslim. So Jalsa gives us an opportunity of having the whole world or the whole universe in microcosm. You have a microcosmic picture of the world, and you can now put into practice the teachings you have learned over the years. Then you have an opportunity of getting to of appreciating the diversity of human nature. You have an opportunity of also networking. You have an opportunity of understanding the fact that those spiritual principles or precepts which you think are difficult to put into practice, others are putting it into practice and they are doing fine.
For you as an individual, this tradition of Jalsa in Nigeria, what's unique about it?
Yeah, it's unique in so many ways. For example, I never thought we're going to have this kind of turnout. I mean, considering the socio-economic situation in the country, how difficult things are. And you'll be surprised I was really, really surprised on Thursday when I saw people, trooping in en masse. It shows that beyond socio-economic travails, there is a hidden force that drives the people. It shows that what we do not appreciate in our people, many times we think they are not committed enough, they are not active enough, it is not, it's not as we think. The people may have individual challenges, but at least they understand the fact that this is something they have to do. I know people who have been saving towards the time of the Jalsa. He knows he has nothing. He knows he cannot really afford it. If they say, okay, you're going to pay 5,000 naira to afford the Jalsa, he knows he's not going to be able to do it. And he started about 3-4 months ago, started saving 500 naira, and alhamdulillah, so these people are here. So that is, it's unique in that sense. And we came here, one good thing that started last year has been improved upon this year, and that's in the feeding. Last year, we discovered that we all experienced a total change in the quality of food people ate at the Jalsa. It has been sustained. In fact, it has been improved upon this year. So it's at the personal level, there is something that actually gives me joy, and that is in the quality of lectures delivered and the personalities that delivered those. You know, I have been an advocate of, trying new hands, and some of our fathers have disagreed with me, but I have been vindicated. We listened to Muhammad al-Waiz Apohi yesterday. We listened to Naomi this morning. I felt, yes, alhamdulillah, this is what I was talking about.
Prof, there's a global conversation at this time, and that's on the situation in Israel and Gaza. You're a professor of Arabic from LASU, Lagos State University.
Yeah.
And there's always been this call since this issue started about the role of the Muslim world in all of these states and how much of an intervention they can also provide to restore sanity to this situation. It's a war situation, some say it's a crisis situation. But for you, really, what exactly is happening in Israel?
Well, what is happening in Israel and Gaza is a reflection of global duplicity in the name of diplomacy. It is a reflection of a universal commitment to injustice by the powers that be. It is a statement about how insincere the superpowers are. Let me tell you something. It depends on who is talking about the Palestinian crisis. It depends on who wants to talk about it. Some people will talk about it from the partition resolution of November 1947. There are those who will say, no, go back to 1917. The Balfour Declaration actually started it. Some will say, no, go back to 1897 during the first Zionist convention in France, and I will say no, it started earlier. It was in 1804 when Father Louis Weiss, who was the president of the London Society for the Conversion of Jews into Christianity, started campaigning for the return of Jews to Palestine. He didn't receive much support, but because he wanted the Jews to become Christians, so he wanted to start a project that will endear Christianity to them. Okay, even if they understand Christians are fighting for their well-being, maybe they will be more sympathetic towards Christianity. So it started then, and by 1840, Solomon Monk, the head of the Jewish community in Egypt, actually approached Muhammad Ali Pasha, who was the ruler of Egypt at that time, with some demands that they wanted a separate Jewish community in Egypt. Muhammad Ali Pasha did not approve that, but he approved Jewish schools. He established Jewish schools for them. He gave them the opportunity of living in places not far from the schools. He gave them the opportunity of giving their children the kind of orientation they wanted. But he did not create a separate Jewish community. It was not until Theodor Herzl and the others, and and the father and Rothschild came together in 1897 with that agenda. You see, if you know the history of secret societies in the world, if you know the history of Illuminati, Adam Weishaupt, who started the Illuminati, for example, was also a German Jew. The founders of the New Age movement who waged war against anything sacred were Jews. And they had only one agenda, and that was the creation of a world government. And that world government was to be situated in the Middle East. So, but because there were a lot of forces against the idea, they decided to draft the protocols. That is, you can Google the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. It was a document prepared by the leaders of the Jewish community concerning their agenda for the world. It was a document which actually laid out everything they wanted to do in the Muslim world. It is true the Palestinians made some strategic mistakes, but in reality, they wouldn't have been able to do much because they didn't have the power, and the Arab nations, the Muslim world, the entire Muslim world was ruled or was being ruled by incompetent and incompetent leaders who did not really understand what the challenge was, and they didn't actually understand how to go about it. So in 1897, it was sealed at the Zionist Convention that they, in fact, Federal Herzl said, we are going to make a case for a homeland. He said, for us it is Judenstaat, but we will say it is Himstaat. Himstaat in Hebrew is okay, homeland, but we know we are talking of a Jewish state. But we will just ask for a homeland in Palestine. You know, the United Nations, or the League of Nations, before the United Nations was created, the League of Nations toyed with the idea of settling them down either in Kenya or Uganda. But later on, they discovered that they had no historic affinity to those areas, they had no connection to that place, and that was the reason why they said, fine. They have a powerful narrative, and that is the fact that the land of Palestine was Canaan of the Bible. The land of Palestine was promised, according to them, that it was promised to their father, to Abraham, and that it was a promised land, so it was promised to them. So we will just say we want to reclaim what was promised to our fathers, and that's why Arthur Koestler gave a rather funny description of the Balfour Declaration in 1970 when Lord Balfour, in connivance with the four great powers, Russia, and Germany. At that time, US was not even a part of the equation then. It was after the Balfour Declaration that US actually became truly involved. So, he said the Balfour Declaration is a document in which one nation promised to another nation the country of a third nation. So, when Lord Balfour declared, let me quote him verbatim. He said, the four great powers are committed to Zionism. Zionism is the Israeli political ideology. He said, the four great powers are committed to Zionism, and Zionism, be it right or wrong, good or bad, is deep-rooted in age-long tradition of far profounder import than the wishes and aspirations of the Arabs that currently occupy that territory. Said it is committed, the four great powers are committed to Zionism, and whether it's right or wrong, it is more important to them to the four great powers than the rights and the aspirations of the Arabs who currently live today. Because as at that time, 93% of the people living in Palestine were Arabs.
So, looking at this historical background,
Yeah.
the issue Israel and Gaza, the current day situation is something that has left a bitter pill in the mouth of many.
It will, because it was it. We cannot move away from it until the United Nations decides to do what is right.
What is that?
You have two principles of international relations, which is taught in schools. It was authored by President Woodrow Wilson of America. Woodrow Wilson, there are two principles. The first one, the right of peoples to self-determination. The second one, inadmissibility of the use of force in the acquisition of territories. These two principles have not been honored in the case of Palestine. We can simply ask, don't the Palestinians have a right to self-determination? Two, inadmissibility of the use of force in the acquisition of territory. Should we tolerate the use of force by Israel in the acquisition of Palestinian territory? Israel has violated both because it was supported by the United Nations, by the United Nations, yes, by the United States, but using the power of the United Nations. So the only birth certificate the state of Israel has is Resolution 181 of 1947. That is the partition resolution. It is that resolution that partitions the land of Palestine into two. The fertile area for the Jews and the non-too fertile area for the Palestinians. In 1948, exactly 1 year after the partition, it was the same United Nations General Assembly Resolution 194 that stipulates that Palestinians whose properties have been confiscated should have their properties released to them, that they should be compensated for the lands they took. It was the United Nations that effected Resolution 181 till this year 2023. Resolution 194 of the same United Nations General Assembly has not been effected. So it's until the United Nations start being fair, truly just, there is nothing anybody can do about it. When people say, no, United Nations is a toothless bulldog, and some people want to argue it, that no, the thing is that there are laid down rules. No nation is allowed to disobey a United Nations General Assembly resolution. Don't forget Operation Desert Storm in 1991 when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. It was the United Nations General Assembly resolution that was invoked by US against.
So until those practical steps.
Because the Muslim world has failed Palestine. And let me tell you, Saudi Arabia, Emirates, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, all of the Gulf states will never do anything because historically they are half Jews, half Arabs. Historically, they are half Jews, half Arabs, most of them, particularly the ruling house in Saudi Arabia. Their mothers were Jews in history. So they know. That is one angle to it. The other angle to it is that they are not, they are more interested in Arabism or Uber, not in Islam. Otherwise, the ideals of Islam will have been used, because they know that the war or the situation in Gaza in particular, because some people, we want to condemn what Hamas did. I also condemned it at the initial stage. It's not that I'm not condemning what they did at that time, but I understand the connection between frustration and aggression. If I want you to be aggressive, I will continue to frustrate you. Before you realize it, you start doing things you shouldn't do. You start reacting. It's a natural thing. when you prevent a person from the most minimum means of survival, they will turn against you. So it's a natural thing. So that was what happened. And there are also economic dimensions to it. There are economic dimensions. It was Gaza had been oppressed continuously. The West Bank, Jerusalem, East Jerusalem, all of these areas had been oppressed continuously for the past 70 years. Nobody said anything. Now, Gaza reacted because in year 2000, crude oil was discovered in Gaza. And the Palestinian authorities consigned the exploration rights to British Oil Corporation. And the Israeli government said they cannot. The Israeli government said they cannot explore because if they explore it, the Palestinians will be the Palestinian nation will be rich, and they said they will be rich to such an extent that they will start funding terrorism. That was the official excuse, and because of that, they now proposed a rather stupid way out. They said they will only allow the British oil to explore that crude oil on the condition that British oil will sell it to Israel, and Israel will not give money to Palestine, where they will provide services in lieu of that. So, and they know nobody is going to accept that. And don't forget, Hamas itself was an Israeli tool. Hamas was established by US and Israeli government to fight against Yasser Arafat from within. When Yasser Arafat headed the PLO, Palestinian Liberation Front, PLF. So it was it's only that the Hamas got wiser. They developed nationalistic ideals. They were being used by US and Israel against fellow Palestinians at the outset. So there's so many things involved.
Of course,
so many things involved
to talk about on this particular situation. And probably speaking, we'll be having the thoughts of Professor of Arabic Studies at Lagos State University, Professor Saheed Timehin, on the issue of Palestine and Israel, the situation of Israel and the Gaza situation. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Sharing your thoughts with us.
Yeah. Thank you.